This thing is like 100 times more contagious.
Spreads like wildfire.
It is
quick.
all over the place. And I can't even begin to tell you how many people have texted me in the last 2 weeks after that day that I missed at the Super Bowl about, their particular story about what is going on. Now, this thing wasn't released out of a Wuhan lab or anything, was it?
No.
I mean, this thing came out of nowhere.
But this has been around for a long time. And now we're dealing with it, and it's going from person to person to person and from room to room to room, which is why I am dead man walking.
Yeah, it feels that way because you haven't had it yet. So, and I wasn't even thinking about it when we were out there in Arizona. But so Gunner's family went through it. Sydney's family went through it.
Mm-hmm.
I've been through it.
Greg's entire family has now gone through it.
His entire family has gone through it. And I would tell you that at least, this is no joke, and I'm not overestimating or embellishing anything. At least 20 of my friends and their families have been through it.
Yeah,
The lesson here is don't have families, right, Al?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, fine. But this thing is, I've never seen anything like this.
No, this kind of sucks. And I will tell you, there was a moment yesterday, because ever since Greg was hunched over with his head in the garbage pail yesterday,
yes,
and vomiting violently, my stomach's been queasy just because I saw it and it kind of gets in your head. So yesterday I drove home, I felt fine, everything was good. And then, Spike told me before I left, he goes, listen, I don't want him in tomorrow. He needs to take care of himself, get some rest, take a day. Great, no problem. Then it hit me, what if I get this tonight? And then my stomach got queasy again. I ended up in the bathroom for about 5 minutes thinking, uh-oh, here we go. And then that was it. I'm like, all right, I'm not sick. I feel fine. But I thought for sure hours later that I had gotten something.
You'll know.
But I will.
I mean, like G knew when he came in yesterday morning that he had it.
Well, he was sick when he got here.
Yeah, I know that. He said he started to feel
the chills
effects of it
in.
over the Kosciuszko Bridge.
He was sitting here like this with a blanket on.
Yeah, I know. I gave him the blanket.
Come on.
But, here's the thing. For me, I got home from dinner. I watched the entire Ranger-Vancouver game that night. The Rangers won the game. And then, I'm telling you, 5 minutes after the Rangers won, I had to sprint to the bathroom.
Yeah.
That's how fast it came on. And I had no warning. I didn't
So you had
feel
no symptoms. Well, you didn't have the chills.
No,
you didn't have a fever, nothing.
I played golf that day, went to an early dinner. Me and my buddy Mike came back. We went to Safeway or Costco, whatever, and got some waters to bring back to our hotel rooms. And then when I was in that supermarket, a couple people had recognized me or whatever, so we had some fun with them. A Cleveland Brown fan, a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. They were in town for that Waste Management Open, and we were having a lot of fun with them. And then literally out of nowhere, I found myself like sprinting to the bathroom and ended up spending at least 6 hours in there. I had never been so violently ill in all my life.
And no place better to be at that point because you don't want to be in the car. You don't want to be out. You want to be home in the comforts of your own bathroom.
I told you, man, anybody who had a hotel room next to me thought somebody was getting murdered in my room because whether you were below me, above me, to the side of me, or across the hall from me, you heard me.
Yeah.
That's how loud it was. So
we hope that G gets better quickly.
Yeah.
And not only that, if you noticed too yesterday, he kind of slipped this one in, and I don't know if you picked up on it. He even said his mother-in-law had it already.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it really went through the family.
It did. So, and it's all over the place. And that's why, it was interesting. The day that I had missed that show, the New York Post had ran an article about how this thing was just flying across the country.
Yeah.
It was all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And then poor Sabrina had it on the way back from Arizona. She's a 5-year-old. And she had her 5th birthday out there, big celebration. Next thing you know, she's on a plane and she has it.
Yeah, terrible.
So, yeah, it's brutal. So, anyway, hopefully your families, if you do end up getting it, that it goes through quickly and you get over it quickly. It took me about 48 hours. That was about it. And hopefully G and Gina do the drip hydration. I'm telling you, it helped a lot.
And he's doing the right thing by not being here because you should not have. If you weren't in Phoenix, you would not have worked that Friday.
Nah, but, Super Bowl had to show up, it's game time. You got to show up. You got to do the best you can. That was a football Friday too. That was a pick segment Friday and everything else.
Yeah,
and
the kickoff show.
Yeah, at the kickoff show after that.
Right, missing that was not an option.
No, there was no option there. You just had to suck it up and go through it. So that's
or suck it. I mean, either way.
No, yeah, well, whatever. I mean, I was that Friday, man. I was miserable.
I know you were, and you got through it like a champion. So anyway, so yesterday this franchise tag window finally opens. This is something we've been talking about for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And until all these things obviously become settled, it's going to continue to be a talking point. Couple of just things of note here. And this goes back to what we talked about yesterday. And I really don't want to talk about Aaron Rodgers and Derek Carr all day again. However, one thing about that. One of the topics of conversation was yesterday, if you were the Jets, timing with Rodgers is everything here. You want to get Aaron Rodgers. If you don't want to get Aaron Rodgers, you're stupid. I clearly think that that's what they want to do. But you also have Derek Carr sitting there as a free agent that you could have whenever. If you make him the right deal, you could have him today, I imagine. The timing of it stinks, though, from the standpoint of you see the story that's put out by ESPN, and I don't doubt the reporting by Diana Rossini talking about how they're conveying to him that you can be a Hall of Fame quarterback if you come here, given the setup and the roster we have and the moves we can still make. And it gets to, if you're Joe Douglas, how do you look you have a job to do. But how do you look these guys in the face knowing that what you're telling them, while may be true, also may not ever become true because you're kind of the second option.
Yeah.
And if you're Derek Carr, you know you're the second option.
Yeah, the Jets are in a really tough spot. You know, they're sitting there and they're waiting for Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers has got to, if he wants to come and play for the Jets, he's got to tell the Packers, I want to be traded to the Jets. That's bottom line is what I told you yesterday. And the panacea for the Jets would be 2 years, $70 million. Mentor Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson stays on the team. I guess you could say, okay, Derek Carr will give you a 4-year deal if you want to be a Hall. Now, I don't know how true that is, but if somebody said to him, you could be a Hall of Famer if you come here and you take this team to the playoffs. I mean, I would like to think that could be anybody. And it's going to be really difficult to do that given the fact that it is the AFC and how good the AFC is and how many better quarterbacks there are in the AFC. And if it goes sideways, we always talk about the positive. If it goes well, you're going to be a Hall of Famer.
Absolutely.
But if it goes sideways, everybody's going to get fired and you're going to be, standing there with another new coach. And I think that if I were Derek Carr, my thing is I am looking for a place that really is stable. And maybe he will be the fallback option for the Jets. And maybe they would offer him more money because of the desperation that would come along with it. I would think that Derek Carr is going to want to make a decision at the worst by the end of next week, because remember, he's the only free agent right now out there as a quarterback. And if there are 2 or 3 teams that are interested in him, he can have his pick. But the moment these other guys become available, if they do become available, then teams will sit down. They will assess their options. They'll look at all the different ways that, they can fit a guy into their salary cap, the length of the salary cap. And I keep saying this, and I know a lot of Jet fans, it's not that they're mad at me. I'm just conveying the message that they are keeping Zach Wilson. He is going to be on the roster. Just so you know that. Unless they decide, okay, Derek Carr, you're the guy. Woody Johnson gets involved. They get a 5-year contract, and he says, the last thing I want is Zach Wilson and that thing hanging over me as the starting quarterback of your team, because Zach was the 2nd overall draft pick. They don't want to give up on him yet.
Not after 2 years. No.
And the best situation, in my eyes, at least for right now, if you had to go between Derek Carr and Aaron Rodgers, the Aaron Rodgers thing would be better for Zach Wilson and his development here as a potential Jet starter in 3 years.
Which makes all the sense in the world. So let's talk. So you talk timeline then. I mean, the Packers, whether they've made the decision or not, clearly if you read the tea leaves and all the stories that are out there, they're done with them. That's what we hear. That's what we read. Fine. Fair enough. So at what point do we find out? I know this retreat thing should be over. We're not going to hear from him because he only talks to McAfee. McAfee's off this week. So at what point does something start to happen in terms of, like, if the Jets want to make an offer, can they call right now to Green Bay?
They've already spoken to Green Bay.
Okay, so
they've already spoken to Green Bay, and Gutekunst basically, realizes that Aaron Rodgers is running this thing. He's the one that's running it.
So then at what point do you think there's clarity on that situation?
I don't know. I can't predict what Aaron Rodgers is going to do, but I think if Aaron Rodgers really does want to play, and he doesn't want to play in Green Bay, and he wants to play with Nathaniel Hackett, the offensive coordinator of the Jets, then I think he's got to basically make a decision relatively quick because you can't leave the Jets hanging.
Well, that comes back to my original point. That's why the timing of this for the Jets sucks, because they've got a guy that, whether you like him or not, is a good option to be a quarterback for the next 4 or 5 years, but he's still option number 2, and you don't want to lose him to another team. Then Rodgers doesn't want to come here. Then what?
You know, the thing I don't understand, and I am a Derek Carr. I do respect him. I like him. I think he is an all-in guy. There's no question that whoever he signs with, he is going to be there the next day. He's going to be at practice. He's going to be learning his offense. He's going to be meeting his coaches and his teammates and the owners. And he is going to be a guy that's going to be all in. So I don't have any question about that part of it. But I do question the fact that Josh McDaniels and the Raiders are letting him go after 9 years. And, you know, all the crap that he had been through in 9 years. And all the instability that franchise, from moving it from Oakland to Las Vegas, the John Gruden stuff, the Rich Bisaccia stuff, the Dennis Allen stuff. I mean, it's just one thing after the next. Jack Del Rio was his head coach. I mean, and he still isn't very successful. If I were him, I'd be looking for something that is so much more stable, like where I could get with a guy that I believe is going to be there for a long time. Now, personally for me, again, I will say Carolina is the place where I think that if he really wanted to have his most success and he wanted to go to the playoffs, that would be the place I would go. But I don't know if they want him. I don't know if that owner down there is, you know, and even Frank Reich had a press conference yesterday and said, you know, there's a lot of coach speak about, you know, we haven't really got into this. We're starting to develop. We finally got our coaches. We have our first staff meeting. I mean, I can't believe that they wouldn't know who they want or what they want. But I don't know if Derek Carr even has a visit there. And to me, that seems like the perfect place for him. But they may feel that they have been burned the last 2 years with Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold, and they don't want to go down that road. They want to get one of these young kids that are coming out now.
Yes, draft someone and start over.
Yeah, I mean, so that could be the case too for him. So he may not have as many options as we think he has. Right now, he has the Saints. And he has
the Jets and
another
team supposedly.
Yeah, but we don't know who that is.
We don't. But the same, and he's got the connection to Dennis Allen.
Yeah, that was his initial coach,
and they wanted him and brought him in initially. So
they tried to trade for him. They had a trade already agreed to with the Raiders, and Derek decided not to because I think his agent probably did some digging and said, hey, look, you know, there's a couple other teams out there I think you need to visit before you make a decision on the Saints.
Yeah, but that's the team that I would be worried about if I was the Jets. But the other thing, too, is he doesn't seem to be, while I know he's a good quarterback, he also the fit in terms of the city, the way he seems to be. I don't
personality?
Know I don't know that he works here, but I don't know that he does either.
As Gio would basically, you know, he is a Bible study guy.
Sure.
So, but that doesn't mean that he's not a great teammate. I mean, all of his teammates love him. And he's just probably not a guy that goes out and starts drinking and hanging out with the guys.
No, and the mistake the Raiders made, too, which is not revisionist history. Getting rid of Bisaccia was not the right move at the time, but whatever. That's the other thing. One other before we break. And so the Giant thing is another storyline that's gone on and on for a couple of weeks now. It's taken a couple of different twists and turns. And to me, the question is, who are you using the tag on? Is it going to be
Daniel Jones?
You think for sure it's going to be Daniel Jones?
I think
so.
For
this
sure.
whole $45 million thing that I don't think was ever confirmed by anybody, but that was put out there is clearly a negotiating ploy. The number that I would think you're going to settle on is between 35 and 40.
No.
Right? I mean, which to me is still crazy.
It's still crazy for him, but I would just say that the moment he changes agents, now people start speculating on what those agents are going to be asking for, or somebody knows anything, like an Adam Schefter may know an agent, or it could be Ian Rappaport or somebody like that knows an agent, and then they look at who they've represented, what the kind of money that they've gotten for their players, and then basically speculate that, you know, he's asking up to $45 million. I don't believe that to be true, but I do think that the Giants believe that this is the best alternative for them is to keep Daniel Jones as a quarterback. So they tag him at about $33 million, 32 and change, I guess, and then they try to work a long-term deal out with him. But I would say that anybody who thinks that he's getting 40 to 45 million is out of their mind.
The question I was going to have for you, when you hear that number, it sounds ludicrous to me.
Wish I still played.
You always talk, well, for sure, and you'd be in that 45 to 50 million.
But then I wouldn't have really gotten to know you guys.
That's true too, and you would in your loss. Yeah. The $40 to $45 million deal, is it possible? You've always talked about the salary cap these coming years and all these TV deals. Is it possible they go in and say, this is a bargain compared to what the numbers are going to look like in 2 years?
Well, I think a lot of this is going to be predicated on what happens with Joe Burrow and what happens with Justin Herbert.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. This is what I mean.
I do believe that Joe Burrow will be the first $50 million a year quarterback. Now, obviously, out of Cincinnati, people are saying, well, he needs to take less money so they can keep T. Higgins, and T. Higgins needs to take less money. I'm like, what? Who is anybody to tell T. Higgins what to do? T. Higgins is on a second-round draft choice contract. He's got 1 year left on his contract at about $4 million. And given what all these wide receivers had got last year, he's worth somewhere between 16 and 20 million. So why should he take less money? This is his chance at the big payday. Much like Daniel Jones, this is his big chance at the big payday. And you got to go out there and you got to try to leverage as best you can and get as much as you possibly can, because you owe it to yourself and you owe it to your family for sure. But if Joe Burrow is going to get a huge contract, and we all believe he's going to, that he's going to eclipse, at least on an AAV situation, average annual salary, is going to be larger than Patrick Mahomes. And quite frankly, he needs to do that.
So
he has to do that.
It's going to go up, go up, go up, go up, go up. And in Philadelphia, you've got a wide receiver that's fighting for his quarterback. We'll get to that and a whole lot more.